bought your first property at what age?
When I was 20.
What's a mistake that you say I learned from that one?
I've never to this day pulled out all my money. My rate of failure is huge.
What are you up to at the moment?
Returns could be mega.
And we are back for another episode of the PBK podcast. In my opinion, and I reckon it's getting there, the people's favorite property podcast. This week we are joined by Manny Odunsi. How you doing?
I'm good, Kazy. How you doing?
Good. It's been a little while. I know. Do you know what? I think you made a couple. I'm going to be honest. You made a couple requests to come on. Yeah. And every time I kind of said, what are you up to at the moment? Because we met in Dubai, right?
That's correct. I think a couple years ago we met in Dubai. Yeah. And I was like, I know that guy. And I was like, he don't know me yet, but he's going to know me. Do you get what I mean? That's
what's mad funny. He actually, I'll vouch for it. This ain't one of those things. Yeah. That's what he said to me. He came over. He said, yo, bro, like, I know your stuff. I know you don't know me, but trust me, you're going to know me. And I feel like you're getting there, like, to the point where you've currently got potentially 4.5 million pipeline. That's a scheme of 22 units.
Correct.
You own a property portfolio of 10 units.
Correct.
Currently 28 years old. How long have you been in property for?
So I've been in property for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I actually turned 26 a couple of days ago. So I've been in property for about 5 years. And my journey really started when I relocated to Manchester because I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go to university because I don't know what I wanted to do yet. So I thought, you know what, let me spend some time at university. I did that, and then spending time in Manchester.
What did you study at university?
So funny enough, my route to university was quite different. I was actually very good at basketball. So I went to one of the best basketball colleges in the UK.
There's that, man. Speak on it, man.
Because
I know it might be debatable. The basketball people might pop up and say, that's not true.
I'm from East London, so I went St. Bonaventure. Then after that, I got recruited to go Barking Abbey. So a lot of the players they produce play nationally. Even right now, a lot of them are in the States playing. A lot of them play Division 1 basketball. A lot of them have gone on to sign pro contracts. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like, we produce results. I'm going to check
with my guys. A couple basketball guys. I'm going to check with Toby, a couple of my boys, make sure that he's
when you tell them Barking
talking facts.
Like, they'll know that we're actually serious. So yeah, did that. Was supposed to go to the States. Didn't really want to do that because of injuries, prospects at the end of it. So I thought, you know what? Let me do what you call a degree apprenticeship. That way, at least I know I won't pay for university. So if I don't like my course, then cool. I haven't wasted 30, 40 bags, basically. I said, I did a degree apprenticeship. That's just like assessment centres, interviews. And luckily, I got the placement with Lloyds Banking Group. They said, yeah, come for 4 years. We'll pay for university. All you have to do is work full-time and study part-time. I said, cool, yeah, that's a deal. So I did that. And I spent 4 years in Manchester.
For somebody that wants to find like a degree apprenticeship, I feel like a lot of the time we say stuff like it's very obvious. What's the actual route to be able to find an opportunity like that?
So right now I think social media is a lot bigger, and you've got people doing day in the life of like a degree apprenticeship, etc., and people providing that information. When I did it, it was quite new, but places like the government website, etc., will show you all upcoming vacancies that they have for degree apprenticeships. So it's a thing that's widely available now, and I think it's being encouraged and pushed more, especially in schools and colleges. So, I mean, if you search online, just type in degree apprenticeship, there's a host of opportunities that will appear, and from that you can just select which one.
Yeah, like ahead of the upcoming elections, apprenticeships has been something that they're saying they want to massively revamp, get a lot more people onto apprenticeships, potentially not, in different types of places. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for that. Definitely. If that's something. So you went into Lloyds,
Lloyds
4 years.
4 years,
and
correct.
What was that like?
That was all right. That was something completely different. So I worked in IT, specifically IT consultancy, so looking at different information, data, etc. And I was working obviously within a financial institute, which was Lloyds Banking Group. So I did that, came in, learned quite a bit. But what I did learn from there was that in an industry like property, it's always good to have rare complementary skills. So you might look at me and think, I'm into IT, like what can I do that will relate to property? I think that's what makes unique people. So if I said to you, all right, cool, you're a boxer, and I sent you to go dancing, you'd be like, why am I doing dancing? But what you don't realize is that from dancing, dancers tend to have the best footwork, for example. So although you're doing something now and you think it might not be relatable to what you're doing, I think there's always an angle, no matter what you do, that it can relate to property in some aspects because it's so wide and it's so broad. So I just use my information or the knowledge I learned from working in finance, especially in IT, just apply that to business.
What would you say is that complementary skill set that you think transitioned into property?
Literally being an IT consultant, understanding systems. I feel like property, the foundations of property systems, whether that be tools such as Searchland, Nimbus, all these different functionalities that are quite important for finding parcels of land. Because right now I work as a land promoter, so 90% of my time is on Searchland, how to assess the data, how to look at sold price, etc. And once I've got that data, how to sort it and how to reach out to different landowners. So I've used, and how to store that information, because I might reach out to you tomorrow, but you might not want to sell tomorrow, but I might send a chase up letter. How is that sort of programmed in my system, basically? How do I know that I need to send a reminder 12 months later? Because it's all about relationships. It might not work today, but I need to make sure I try tomorrow or next year. So I've got a good system in place to ensure that I'm continually reaching out to owners, not just once, but whenever I get the chance to.
So see, you spoke about, you know, what you think made you, like, the transferable skill sets.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually making that transfer, why did you want to get into property?
That's a very good question. I'll be completely honest, because I just thought it's an industry where if you work really hard, you see results. I don't think you have to be super intelligent. I've got a lot of friends that are into investment banking, private equity, and I've seen the work they do, and I can tell you, you need to be intelligent to do that. But I've seen, not to insult people, but I've seen people that do property, and I know some people haven't got degrees, some people aren't the best at maths, English, etc. And I've seen them do very well in property. So I said that I'm not the best academically. I'm all right. I'm not an idiot, but I'm all right. So I knew I could do well in property because the skill sets you need to make it in property is something I thought I could, if not I don't have it now, I could grow to learn, essentially.
Okay. So then what was your first foray into property? So you've done 4 years at Lloyd Banking Group, and then how did you transition and pivot into property?
So luckily I was working for Lloyd's Banking Group, who actually give out mortgages. So I'm working at this time, I've said that I'm going to university, but they pay me a salary. So I'm working full time, but studying part time. So in my first year, I'm saving. In my second year, I'm saving as well for my salary, of course. Obviously, I'm not getting no student loan, no maintenance grant, etc. So I'm just getting a salary, which was decent for my age at the time. I'm saving that money. I'm living in a house with 6 other guys. I'm thinking, we're all paying our landlord this amount of money. Something's clicking here. Let me just save up the first year and second year, and let me look to actually invest. So I thought to myself, in Manchester, house prices at the time, funny enough, in Manchester weren't too bad. So the first property I bought was 109,000. So obviously, how it works on average is that you could be able to borrow 4.5 times your salary. And obviously, 109,000 with a deposit, that was quite attainable. I said to myself, okay, third year, my goal was to buy a property. And I did actually. And that's how it started. Kind of accidentally, but intentionally at the same time.
In terms of, like, background wise, like, I know you're Nigerian. Did your parents own property?
Yeah. So my parents live in London, and they bought their years about 20, 30 years ago. And obviously everyone knows what's happened to property prices in London. So of course that helps as well to see, like, their property 10x in value. And I thought to myself, all right, cool. Even if it doesn't 10x, I know there's money that can be made in property.
Because I think, like, particularly, like, when you were up first going to Manchester, how old were you then?
I was 19 when I first started.
So why do you think you decided to save your money rather than, I don't know, go and buy Prada or Louis Vuitton? Like, what was it about you or your friend circle that made you want to make those types of decisions?
So I think from quite young, I've just always had a hustler's mentality, and especially the people I gravitate towards are always money hungry in a sense. Like, some of my boys are doing spring weeks, summer internships while at university, do you get me? Because they all want to get into investment banking, those sort of industry. I knew I didn't want to do that. Although I did try it, I said, no, this is not for me. So I just knew they're going to make money. I don't want to be left behind. So what can I do? It might not be investment banking, but I know if I really knuckle down on this property stuff, I can make some decent returns from it. So I think my circle was just very money hungry. I think that's growing up in East London and just always trying to make it out. I always say the saying that your background loads the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. And it works on both sides of the coin. So growing up in East London, for example, you might not be the best in terms of how you're brought up, in terms of what access to funds you've had, etc. But your environment will pull that trigger to say, okay, this is what your destiny's going to be. Same way if you grew up with a wealthy background, the gun's loaded for you, you've got all the steps there, but you still have to pull that trigger. And it's just down to you whether you should pull the trigger or not pull the trigger. In my instance, where I grew up, I decided not to pull the trigger, not to go down that route of I don't know what it could be. Do you get what I mean? But I just said to myself, you know, I'm going to try to make something of myself, and that's why after I'd done my university degree in Manchester, I could have come back to London, but I decided to stay in Manchester because I know, although it's a sacrifice now, I feel like the returns could be mega if I just sit it out. 'Cause I'm 26 now. By the time I get to 30, I might come back to London. We'll see. But as for now, it's working in Manchester. I do come back and visit. Obviously, I'm in London today, but it's definitely a decision I had to make, and that's.
I think you made a lot of really mature decisions at an early stage, like particularly when it comes to like the type of people that you decided to be around, the type of people you decided not to be around. Do you think, where do you think that came from? Do you think that came from upbringing? Do you think that came from like?
I think it came from quite a few things played a part. I say upbringing, definitely. Obviously, being Nigerian, having strict parents. Not to mention that my dad's a police officer as well. So I think that played a big part as well. You have to be very disciplined. I mean, if you want to become a police officer, they do background checks on your whole family. So if I'm out on the streets doing things that are silly, it's going to affect the income coming into my family. So from a young age, I knew, all right, cool, I need to be disciplined in what I do. I've got an older brother who's a year older than me, so he's 27 as well. He's quite mature. I think he kind of set the tone. He went to private school. He got an academic scholarship to boarding school. So, you know, there's a lot of pressure already. Do you get what I mean?
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, and I think it's important to speak about like the benefits that come from obviously having good people around you, whether that be friends, whether that be family, because the importance of it to be able to instill those values going forward. You mentioned your brother being a good role model to you. It was pressure, but it also meant that you knew you couldn't really mess up because you've come from good stock. So that's interesting. So you bought your first property at what age?
So my first property when I was 20.
And how much was your deposit for that first property?
So because the house was 109,000, I could have only put 10.9, but I ended up putting 14k down.
14k down.
Yeah, so not a huge amount of money.
And it took you around 2 years to save that amount.
I mean, I was like, so that wasn't my first job. Lloyd's Banking Group, it was my first, I'd say, career job, if you get what I mean. So I'd worked in McDonald's previously. I'd done security, stewarding for like, you know, the West Ham games.
Whenever I see stewards, I always think, I'd hate if it rained, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. But the good thing, sometimes I did the O2 Arena, so I got to see like Drake.
Good to see shows and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not good. Like NBA came to London quite a few times, and I was definitely working that shift because I get to watch the NBA.
No, that's cool.
And
man.
I get to work at the same time, so it was a no-brainer at the end of the day. So I did little jobs like that. I worked in the bookies as well, William Hill. So saving for a long time, to be fair.
Okay. But yeah, so you were saving for a while, but that was your first kind of structured 2 years.
Yeah.
And what was like the feeling of actually that completing on that first property like?
I mean, it was amazing. I mean, not that I'm big on social media, but I like to show everyone what I'm doing. I post a lot. People might call it being vain, but the love and the support I got was amazing from that. And obviously I knew it was a big accomplishment, but everyone was like, raw, like you were so quiet about it, like you're only 20, like how have you bought your first house, you get what I mean? Bearing in mind, obviously it was in Manchester, but at the end of the day, it's still a big accomplishment at the end of the day. So I mean, definitely. I was over the moon. I was happy, and I thought, yeah, this is something I want to pursue. So I just kept me going, to be fair.
Okay, so that was your first purchase. Do you still own that home?
Yeah, I still own that home. I think the main reason why I bought that house below market value, in my opinion, at the time, and I think that stemmed from being able to negotiate, which is a big skill. And people always ask me like how to negotiate, and some people can't even accept the word no. I think negotiation starts when someone says no to you. If you've accepted an offer straight away, we haven't negotiated. You might think you've negotiated, but you haven't. Like, I think there needs to be a no. It's a funny story about my first property. I called the estate agent. I said, I'm really interested in this house. She's like, no, it's sold. Really? Yeah, it's accepted offer. Guess what I did? So I pulled up to the house. I went there, and it was a Ghanaian guy living there. And we said, I'm sorry, man, it's sold, it's sold. I saw his little kids playing out. I said, okay, no worry. I went back home. I went to the shop, went to go buy sweets, etc. Came back to his house again. I said, please, like, I'm young. I'm really trying to get on Forest London. This is my house. I like this house. I still own it to this day. I still live in it to this day. I said, I need this house. He's like, all right, cool. Let me see what I can do. He's like, all right, cool. Tomorrow, put in an offer of 109, and I'll call the agent and say he accepts the offer. And he did that, and that's how I bought the house.
And I think, obviously, you know, when people look at things and say, oh, like, some people got lucky or there were these things, it's like those little moments of when you try that a little bit harder, you take that extra step, and you could have got a no there, exactly, but you would have learned. Worst case, you learned something, and you build a relationship. Definitely. Best case, you get the end result you want. So I think it's definitely like, you know, a good lesson for people that are looking. I wouldn't necessarily buy random kid sweets. However, I would say going out of your way to obviously make yourself memorable, to do something different, to stand out from the crowd and differentiate yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was like your first property that you bought.
Yeah.
You now sort of 10x that and own 10 properties. How did you go from owning one property to owning 10?
So that was my first property, but I wouldn't say it was my first investment property because obviously I was living it. I still live in the house today. I said to myself, all right, cool, I need to step up. But I've learned this now, not to be scared. The second one, I was a bit scared. Not scared, but I thought, you know what, let's pull some guys together and let's try to get the second one. So I called 3 of my boys that I knew that was serious. I was like, you know what, I think there's money in this. Let's try and buy our next house. So we did. We bought it at auction for about 56,000. That was in Accrington, so just outside of Manchester in the northwest of England. Bought that 56,000 auction. All putting money together, renovated it, and it's a 5-bed HMO that we still own all together to this day, to be fair. So that was my second property that I bought, and that's how I came about buying my second property. And I said, oh, okay, this really works now. And after that, I said, I'm ready now to scale up, to trying to go for the big leagues, basically, and just keep on buying.
And what did scaling look like for you when you say scaling? How did you actually do that in practice?
I wanted to start small, so it was smaller projects like 3-bed HMOs, 4-bed HMOs. So the property I bought after that was another 3-bed HMO. There was a standard 2-bed, 2 up, 2 down house, which I then converted into a 3-bed HMO. I bought that one for a steal as well. That was 52,500. So they're not expensive houses. That's why I think it was feasible. And obviously, it just comes to a point where I've got kind of like a track record now. I've got 2 houses now. I can now approach people and say, all right, okay, this is what I'm doing. I need to raise a bit of finance. Obviously, I mentioned the circle friends that I had. And I said, yo, I didn't say yo, but I said, I've got this idea. Please, obviously I pitched it a bit more professionally. You know what I mean? Sent them documents. I said, okay, look, I'm looking to do this. Like, would you back me? And I went to my close knit friends that worked in investment bank at the time, earning good money, didn't know what to do with it. They were like, yeah, cool. Of course we'll support you. We've seen what you're doing. Because I post on Insta and Snap and TikTok quite a bit.
How important do you think social media has been to your growth?
Oh, branding is so important. And I think with branding, you can't be like on the fence. I think people either have to hate you or love you. And I think that's what makes good brands. I think at the end of the day, you trying to please everyone will never work at the end of the day. And I feel like social media is the best way to be authentic. I mean, I'm not going to come here in a shirt and tie. It's not me. Like, I'm going to come in off-white or I come in on a normal day. If I'm going to a different meeting or pitching to investors, okay, I might put on a shirt. But I think being yourself is the best way to go about things, because people see the authentic version of yourself and they think, okay, he's relatable. He's not making for camera or anything like that.
I think people buy into people a lot of the time. And it's like, if what you're saying, what you're delivering resonates with them, they see some of their self in you or vice versa, people are a lot more likely to buy into it for the long term. And I think there's like, you know, a kind of a saying that you can buy views with sort of clickbait stuff and with being a certain way, but you can't buy the engagement. You can't buy the love. The thing of when people really say that if you say something, they want to repost it, they want to share it, they want to see you win. And I think if you are yourself consistently, that shines through. And definitely some of the people that I like to follow on, like, I follow some random stuff on social media just because I like I think right now I'm in like a mad like mini golf algorithm where I just follow people playing mini golf. And it's like, but it's because the people doing it, I just like, there's this guy called Eddie. I've mad bought into Eddie. Like, I want to see Eddie win.
No, that's true. Even like you mentioned golf, like even like Steph Curry loves playing golf. I mean, just there's certain things of certain sports that people do and you think, all right, cool, it's relatable. Especially in the property industry, golf is a big thing. Although I can't play it yet, and lessons are expensive.
You're gonna get there. So right, actually, do you know what, I'm gonna invite you down. So I think it's the 16th of June. There's a paddle. Do you know what paddle is? No. It's like a mixture between kind of sort of tennis and squash and something like that. But it's a good sport. We're gonna do a property paddle tournament. So different people. So make sure you come down. We're gonna be hosting that.
Brush up on my skills.
Exactly. So, okay, so you got this network of people you built through social media. You managed to, over time, over a, 6-year period, build a 10 property portfolio. But whilst doing that, you also got into property full time in terms of your 9 to 5 as well.
Correct.
So what did that look like?
So when I was getting into property, I think there was a big push for courses. It was pushed everywhere you looked. There was a course here, course there to get into property. I did a few of them, to be fair, and I wouldn't say they were beneficial, if I'm being honest. But
They were or weren't?
they were. They
Nice.
were. I mean, you can imagine I'm transitioning from computer science to a job as a land buyer for Red Row Homes. You're gonna think like they're gonna look at this and be like, "There's no experience here." What I was able to do in that interview is bring the understanding and the knowledge I've learned for those courses and apply it to a job role. And they said, "Okay, you know what? You've done your own research. Obviously you haven't got a property degree or anything like that, but we can see that you're eager to learn. So, all right, we'll take you on, basically." So I think it helped in that aspect. What I don't understand is, me being honest, how people do 1 or 2 courses and they're just scaling like crazy. Like I don't think it's feasible. To this day, I'm still learning things every day, and I feel like it will get to a point maybe where I feel like, okay, I just want to do it completely full time by myself. But the rooms I get invited to, the network of people I meet, like you can't put a price on it, and that's because of what I'm doing in my day role, and it just keeps me refreshed at the same time. New rules, new regulations. I'm always current because I'm living and breathing this stuff. So that's why I think the best way to learn is to obviously work for one of these big organizations. People might look at me and be like, "Nah, you're wasting your time," but it's work for me, and it's how I like to learn. I can't read a book for hours or go to a course, a 3-day course, and think I know it all. I need to be living and breathing this stuff. That's why I decided to go down that route.
On my side, I'd say definitely, as much we spoke about a lot of the positives of social media, one of the negatives is everything is microwave content. So because everything is so fast, everybody wants to tell you how to live your life in 30 seconds. But the reality is you don't have these one-size-fits-all things. So working for a large home buyer or home builder may be perfect for somebody. Running your own business may be perfect for somebody. Getting a mentor may be perfect for somebody. Not having a mentor may be perfect for somebody else. And I think when people try and just like cover everything with these blanket statements, a lot of the time it is just sort of sensationalized nonsense. So I would say for those that are starting their journey, looking to transition in their journey, do that personal analysis and work out what works for you. Because what works for your friend isn't necessarily going to be what you need.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you went to go and, so for those that are not familiar with Red Row, who are they? What do they do?
So Red Row are a nationwide house builder. Effectively, they build thousands of homes a year. And you have different markets, in my opinion. And not to name any, but Red Row is up there in terms of the quality of the product they produce. They might not produce the most, but if you look at a Red Row home, you'd be like, that's a Red Row home, and it comes with a premium. So effectively, they're a house builder that basically builds new build houses.
So premium home builder. And then what's your role within Red Row Homes?
So when I was at Red Row Homes, I was a land buyer. So what that consisted of is meeting landowners. There was 2 sides of it. So you have immediate land and you have strategic land. So to touch on immediate land, this is sort of land that's already more than likely got an outline. So you approach an agent and it's on the market and they want you to basically put an offer, but once you get your reserve matters submitted and you can go in and build your house types effectively. And
so I think just remember, not everybody's worked at Red Row and that's familiar. So when you use some terminology, for example, let's rein it in a little bit. So you act in as like a land buyer. Before we get to reserve terms and things like that and outline planning, we're going to actually try and help people understand what some of these terms are. So as a starting point, what was your kind of remit within Red Row? Like what were you doing?
So on a day-to-day basis, the one big thing that was part of my day job was networking. So you need opportunities to come into the business. Although we're a household name, we do get opportunities that come in, but still, as part of my day job, I'm meeting with agents, meeting with landowners. Then they might have a landowner that wants to sell their parcel of land. It could be 50 acres, 10 acres, 5 acres. Sometimes what they'll do is on their own back, they will apply for planning permission to build to get the permission to build houses, basically. Once they've done that, they've already sort of made their money. So now they're looking to sell it to someone that can build, because maybe you can, but I can't go and build 50 homes myself, do you get what I mean, or 100 homes. I just haven't got the team behind me currently. So someone like Red Row can do that easily. So to maximize value and time, that landowner wouldn't want to build it out because it's not feasible, and they can make a lot of mistakes. They'll go to someone like Redrow, who I worked for, or another house builder, and be like, okay, we've got this permission to build these houses. Do you want to build it? And we'll be like, if it's in the right location, if we can sell the house for more, that we can build it. That's quite key. People will come to you with land that we want you to buy, but you end up losing because it costs more to build the house than to actually sell it. So we'd approach them and be like, okay, we'll put an offer of this amount. If you're happy, let us know. We'll buy it and we'll take it from there, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's effectively, so you were, a land buyer.
Yeah.
Outside of networking, you mentioned some of the tools that you used.
Yeah.
What are some of those tools that you use for those people that potentially want to do it maybe outside of the corporate so they can also use?
Yeah, so it's basically like, there's different platforms. Not one's the best, just they all work better depending on the functionality that you're looking for. But effectively, these search engines are based like a base layer over like a Google Maps search, and basically it allows you to click on different parcels of land in the UK and see who owns it and effectively get in contact with them. But this works more with the strategic side. So we've just touched on the immediate side, which is basically when it has some sort of permission to do something. If you're looking something without permission, and in my opinion has the best value, you need to find something that hasn't got permission, and this is how you find the owners or the parcel of land. And what's good about these softwares is that they have layers so you can analyze it a lot more quicker and a lot more better. So for example, on some of these functionalities, you can see if it's ever been submitted for planning permission, if it's been rejected, etc., if it's in a green belt, all these basic things that you need to know before you go in and effectively try and get planning permission. So these search engines are really good. There's quite a few.
And what's some examples of them?
So you've got Search Land, you've got Land Insight, you've got Nimbus, and there's a few others that I just can't remember at the moment, but these are some of the big ones that people use to sort of find parcels of land within the UK.
I think it's interesting you touched on the fact that early on about the use of different skill sets, particularly about the utilization of software from a previous job role, and how you can have those interchangeable skills that can make you a good property developer or investor as well.
Yeah.
So that's what you kind of were doing 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that, but then, so you still there?
No, so I moved into a more smaller company, and it's more like I'm involved in more, because obviously Redrow is a PLC. This is more like a private company. It's backed by some investors in the US. About 14 investors in the US backed this company, and we're what you call a land promotion company. So I touched about the immediate and the strategic side. So we don't really touch any of the immediate side at the moment. It's all the strategic. So we would look to get planning permission. And
because that's effectively where the uplift is.
Definitely,
it's obvious once something's got planning, it's predetermined. So people are basically, the landowners are effectively, when they go to market, they're telling you, well, we know what it's worth as a finished product, so we're going to allow you to make this much money.
Exactly, yeah. And landowners never really understand the value of their land. Yeah. And it annoys me. I think I've put 2 years of effort, especially when it's in areas that doesn't make sense financially. A lot of landowners don't understand that just because you've now got permission to build, it doesn't make the site viable at the end of the day. So we try now to get planning permission, and then what we don't build anymore. So we'll give it to like a Redrow, a Barrett's, Taylor Wimpey, for they can go out and build their house types. And me personally, I hate construction. I don't have a construction background. I still go to sites sometimes and I haven't got a clue what's going on. I'm asking everyone questions.
It's good to ask questions. Like, it's good to ask. I think it's good to know, just because it's very different. Also, it's very different, in terms of managing high ticket, like you said, 50, 100 unit sites versus trying to do a 2-home build. They're completely different in terms of the scale and level of builders you get involved, and contractors across the board. Okay, so at the moment you're focusing on just adding the value, effectively, like planning gain.
And get rid of it. Yeah.
And get rid of it.
That's the best way, in my opinion.
I think it's good. I think it just really depends. Like, obviously, I think in terms of best way, it's always going to depend on people's personal attitudes and what they want to do. But that's where you're offering. And have you found what's your favorite project that you've worked on to date?
My best project, are we talking more the HMO side or more the development side?
Either, like, just what's your favorite project that you've been involved in?
My favorite one is the current project that I'm working for, that I completed for myself, which was a 5-bed HMO which was in Ellesmere Airport. The reason why is because I got it at a steal. I got it for 70 grand. I spent about 40 grand on it, 50 grand on it, and converted into a 5-bed HMO. What was so good about that project is because I saw it on the day it came live, and I put an offer and got accepted. It had to be a cash offer for 70 grand. I think that's another thing. I think people think cash is the biggest problem. I think it's moving with urgency, and that's one thing I've never ever stumbled across, is moving quick. You're gonna make mistakes. I feel like the quicker you can make mistakes, the more you elevate past your peers. So my rate of failure is huge. I've done BR strategy and I've never to this day pulled out all my money. I see people do it all the time. I've never done it. People might see that as a failure, but I'm still getting it. But the reason why some people might be able to and I can't do it is because I always employ a main contractor. Like you said, I'm working 9 to 5. I haven't got the time to be on site.
To self-manage,
different. I know some people do that and it works, but I just can't do that. So you've got to lose in some aspects. So I know that I'm spending a bit more on a refurb than the average person will, but that's because the only option I can use, because I
but
have
it's
to be at
also
work full
like
time.
time value as well.
Yeah.
If you're in a good job in a 9 to 5, you got to look at what your day rate is. So for you to be on site every day, it may actually indirectly cost you more by being there, depending on how much you currently value your own time.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and then just to talk on that project as well, so like I mentioned, it was a 5-bed HMO. What's so good about it, it's the closest I've got to pulling out all my funds. And on top of that, it's leased out to a social housing provider. I think that's key for me. Like I mentioned, cash is there. I think cash is easily available, but there's other elements of property or business that I think is more important. So like time is a big thing for me. So that frees up my time immensely to focus on my day job, to focus on the developments I do for myself as well, because I know once it's leased out, any headaches, any problems, that is nothing to do with me, basically. And I don't get contacted until if there's any structural issues, or if the lease is coming to an end and whether I wanted to renew it, etc. So it just works for me. Obviously, for me, I don't know what social housing providers people are using, but the ones I use, you don't get market value. You get a bit below market value, and that's understandable because they'll take care of the maintenance, so like the upkeep of the property that will be maintained, bills that take care of bills. If there's any problems, tenants not paying, tenants will pay because they pay for the tenants effectively. So you don't get any void periods effectively.
So even though your gross may be slightly lower, your net is and I guess that comes from your banking background.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at bottom line, because net is more important than the gross.
Definitely, because I haven't got that problem of bills fluctuating, of things, the boiler breaking 5k, which could wipe out a couple months' rent. So I just know this is what I'm getting, no matter what. No matter if it rains, if it snows, I'm getting this money tomorrow regardless, which I like, because I like the consistency effectively.
So what's next for you? What's like going forward? What do you hope to achieve? What are your goals?
Just to really scale up and grow, keep consistent. I think social media as well is quite big. So like I mentioned, social media is something I'm really focused on this year, and people always saying to me, you could have done this video a bit better, man. You stumble on your words a few times, but you just got to put the content out there. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. If I stumble, and I want to put the authentic me out, if every line I say is perfect, how many tries did it take? Just be yourself, record. And like I said,
I'll be shouting at my videographer, run that back, man.
Run that back, man. Like, even today, we've taken no pauses. We've just done it straight.
Podcast is one take. But when I'm doing my videos, I say, do you know what? I just think, like, it's that your social media is your shop window.
I get you.
So whilst I understand the authenticity side of things, there's also that thing of best foot forwards.
Agreed.
You know, I think if in your properties, if like, you know, maybe the tilers did something and you saw the blade was really dull and all the edges, you'd be like, nah, you got to redo that. And I think you need to take that same 100%. Level of ethos with yourself, just because that may be somebody's first introduction to you. So like sometimes there's the humor side of things and there's the banner and that's all good. But I think, you know, it's important to put your best foot forward.
It definitely is. I mean, like you said, there's a spectrum at the end of the day. You don't want something terrible going out and people think, this guy's not serious. But At the same time, I want it to be as real and as authentic. And then the big thing for me, people see the progress, the elevation. So it will get to the point where I'm using the maddest cameras or etc. But I'm starting with an iPhone to start with.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's what my budget can hold at the end of the day.
You see the progress.
Yeah,
definitely. If you go back, watch this back, and go watch whether it's the early podcasts, the early YouTube videos, completely different setup in terms of camera quality and deliverables.
I haven't said to you when I walked in, I was like, this place is clean.
Right, listen, I told you. See the studio here? Yeah. It's run by Inspector Gadget. Every week, he'd be like, yo, Kaz, I got a new this, I got a new that. This one's wireless. I'm like, bro, does it film? Let's go. But no, that's good, man. Okay, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions now.
Got you.
Because you mentioned when you started out, you know, there's a lot of people and property doing things. Who would you say has been like the most instrumental person in your journey?
Been the most instrumental person
from a property perspective, not like that. They don't have to say mom, dad. I know they'll shout at you otherwise. We don't say them.
I mean, there's not one person that sticks out. I think there's different combination of different people, and I think the one thing about myself, I'm not shy to give people praise. Like I saw you in Dubai, I could have just stayed on my table and be like, people look at me like, if my boys came to me like,
look at him, he dropped the other table though.
yeah, Dubai. Yeah, I had a table. Kazy also had a VIP table, by the way. So I had to, funny enough, he had his section was actually roped off in it. So somehow you had to come to the rope, and we had a quick conversation there, to be fair. And then, yeah, so I'm not scared, especially if I see opportunity and I see someone that's doing well, to give them the praise. So I feel like different people within the property space has played a part in me wanting to be a developer, etc.
Okay. What about, you mentioned lessons and making mistakes. What's a mistake that you say I learned from that one?
It's understanding the build, construction costs. It's what's even harder now is because I moved over to the land promotion side. I'm not as current as I was with build costs. So every time I'm going to networking events, I'm speaking to my colleagues, or not my previous colleagues or people. I'm like, how much are you building for? How much? I don't know why it's a secret as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, do you know what it is though? Like, because it's okay, if you're talking about larger scale home building at that point, and like price per square foot, it's very dependent on standard.
It is.
Like, what's it got and what's the existing precondition, like what's its proximity? Because, you know, if even on small scale stuff like rear extensions, the difference between if you've got to use a conventional foundation versus piling versus a raw foundation. So like, if someone says, what does an extension cost? Might cost 20 grand, might cost 120, and it might cost even more depending on the area in which you're building, the site access, and all these different things. I think it is difficult, but I think the thing that's important is being able to identify those specifics that can create the price fluctuations.
Exactly, yeah. And I think because I've moved away from it now, it's ever important. And I'm not trying to get a specific number, I'm just trying to get an average. I know, all right, Redra might say it cost, I don't know, 250, 190, or another house builder might say it's only costing us £120 a square foot. But at least I know in my head, okay, if this deal's going to work, it's not going to be a Redborough type development, it's going to be another sort of house builder.
It's interesting, you mentioned about like the value of land. So slightly different in London because house prices are more expensive. But one place where I do see that a lot is when you've got like an end of terrace with a garage to the side. And people go and get planning to build an extra house. But what happens is, if it's not in a premium area, you go and get planning, the cost of building a house is already expensive in London. Then you've turned the existing end of terrace to a terrace, so that depreciates the value of the existing home. Plus, you've then got to build it out. Plus, you've got a home that's next to a construction site for 12 months. So like, you end up with a very close to sometimes, you know, like zero land value.
Exactly, And what people forget, that the lenders might look at that end of terrace you now turn it to mid-terrace and say to you, okay, we think there's going to be problems, especially if you want to build out yourself because construction going on for 6 months. How are you going to mitigate that? Is there going to be any party wall agreements that you need to get sorted out now? So all these different elements. I think it's easier to go in, just go hard or go home, in my opinion. So I don't really look at the side garages. It's like the 5, the 20s, the 100s, the 50 units, because if you're doing it, you might as well do it, and you get economies of scale doing it. So your build cost effectively will come down because you can get different labourers on at roughly the same time, not coming for one job or pricing one job. They're pricing numerous different elements of the build at the same time. So it just makes it a lot easier. And people always think, okay, I'm doing 5 houses. I'd rather just do one, start with one. Just start with 5 and have the confidence to do it. Obviously, with
can I give you the caveat to that? Yeah, my thing is always about. I get the confidence perspective, and it's maybe building one is as difficult as building 5, and it's only when you get to maybe building 20 that it changes. Yeah. But I think there's 2 things to consider. And they're different for different people. Yeah. But number 1 is your risk tolerance. Yeah. So if you're building more properties, generally speaking, beyond like what you've already built out, you're gonna sign a much higher PG. Yeah. And it depends. If you're already PG more than the assets you own, it's like have you ever heard this saying? Oh, if you owe the bank like £1,000, it's your problem. If you owe them 100 million, it's our problem. So it's like, definitely. So if you already PG'd for more than the assets you own, then it's kind of like it's neither here nor there. But if, for example, it's the difference between maybe being PG to 25% of your net worth versus 100%, it then becomes an issue of your attitude towards risk. And then outside of that, when we talk about doing larger schemes, my thing is always risk and reward. For argument's sake, you're in the HMO space. Have built out 10 HMOs, got a level of understanding. And then let's say we just use a number like your average return on investment is 30%. If you're making 30% on that HMO space and somebody tells you to come and now build 5 new build homes, but your return on investment is 25%, for it to be justify you moving across, 100%. Surely your return on investment has to be higher because you have a higher level of intrinsic risk.
Definitely. I think what's interesting about that is similar. So the 22 new build homes that we're building, I just saw the reward was there. It was a deal meant for me. The reason why I say this is I could have gone in and said I only want to build 5 or 1, but this still stacked on paper, and there were certain reasons why it stacked on paper. There were certain risks that had already been eliminated from the offset. So for example, it was 2005, 2006 build that Redrow had got outline for, and I think it was for 200 and something units. But
just to confirm for people not familiar, what does outline planning mean?
So outline planning is basically, it's got permission to build the houses, but you haven't specified the house types you're going to build. It's just saying, it's basically contingent, saying you can build up to a certain amount of houses, basically. So you've got that security in place that you can get something on there, and you know what number of houses you can get, but you don't know specifically what sort of house types you can get. Okay. So this outline application I'm talking about it was over 200, something just over 200, and they also submitted a reserve matters. So now Redrow have come to the site.
And just to confirm again, reserve matters.
So as you can imagine, different house. If me and Kazy owned a business, we wouldn't necessarily want to build the same houses. He might want to do a flat conversion or build a block of flats. I might want to build a row of terraces. So I would now go in and say, okay, I want to build houses that suit my business, and that's why I submit an application to say, okay, this is what we're going to build. The local authority, is it acceptable? Yes or no? Once you get the green light, you can now effectively build. Obviously, there's pre-commencement conditions, but that's not what the point I'm trying to make. But the point I'm trying to make is that, so it had this reserve matters application that was submitted in 2006. And for some reason, Redrow didn't build out the full outline. So it landed on my table, and I was working Redrow at the time when this happened. Obviously, Redrow had moved off site and it went to auction. And I said, this is quite interesting, because obviously I know the house types, etc. And this was the right deal to get involved because a lot of the risks were already eliminated. We got the land, we purchased the land for very, very cheap. I think what people forgot is that people thought they'd need to go back in and get planning for the 22 units. But I knew we didn't have to. We could just get a certificate of lawful use. What that is basically a certificate saying we are not varying the previous planning permission. We're just going in and building what has already been accepted, basically.
Had the planning expired, or is it?
No, because they already built out some of the houses.
Okay, so they started it. So they'd already say it was basically.
Yeah, so it runs on forever. So once you've put a spade in the ground, the planning permission will run on forever. So effectively, we've just gone in and said, we're not varying anything. We're just continuing to build, taking off where the previous developer had stopped, basically. So, and what was so good about that is you can imagine there was no Section 106 to pay. So Section 106 is basically some obligations you've got to pay to help improve the local area, or pay for a new school, etc. Just because obviously you're serving a lot more people now. So there's no Section 106 to pay. there was no affordable housing allocation because that had already been issued out already. So affordable housing, basically, you can't sell all the houses to the private market. There needs to be some houses that are quote unquote affordable for different schemes. The government can apply to those houses just to allow everyone an equal chance to get these houses. So you make less money on these affordable houses. So there wasn't that contribution as well. And you can imagine the services had already been paid for by Redrow. So I'm going in, I'm thinking, this is going to cost us.
That's a good one. See, if you're a
nothing.
developer and you know services,
services already
services
on
where
paid
like
for.
the stress really kicks in. Okay, so you got no affordable housing. No Section 106. Services already in place. Planning is already predetermined. You just need a certificate of lawfulness. CIO.
There's no CIO.
No CIO. So no community infrastructure levy.
Yeah, because the areas I'm developing, it's not high-end areas. So to an extent, they want to make the development feasible for developers. So there's no sort of on that as well.
So do you mind, do you know how much you got the property for in the end?
The land we bought for 335k.
Okay, and that was with planning effectively for 22
units.
And what type of units are they?
The flats and terraces. So a few terraces and one block of flats.
Okay, nice. And are you actually building that one out yourself?
Yeah. So it's me and my business partner. That's another thing. So I couldn't take this on by myself. And he actually approached me about the deal saying, I know you work for Redrow. You've been doing this planning stuff for a lot of time. What do you think about this? And obviously, I might have had some inside knowledge potentially. But
that's where we spoke about the 9-to-5 stuff, and we spoke about the value and having that level of expertise. If people didn't know that you were established in your own field, had your own credibility, they wouldn't have come to you for that. So I think that's where, the underlying value comes from. People seeing you as an expert in your field and saying, you know what?
I think there's 5 different buckets, not even just in property, but I think in business. You need to have, I think, knowledge, skill is quite key. I think after that, it's your network, your reputation, and the resource you have available. See those first 2, your knowledge and your skill. Take the rest away from you. You'll always be needed, especially as times are changing quite quickly. If you've got those 2 and you keep on brushing up on those 2, I think the other 3 will come to you. So the resources and the network and your reputation, that will all just come based on those first 2. So I always aim to fill up my first 2 buckets, and I just know the water will naturally flow into the other buckets. So that's why I'm still staying where I am, because there's still so much to learn. And obviously it gets to a point where you can never know everything. But I feel you just got to take that decision to make sure that you've known enough to sort of go in and get that right decision. And I think also if the decision you're going to make, because I wasn't 100% going into that development that I was going to make money. I knew that I was doing. I knew nothing about construction. But if I could get to 51%, I'll go ahead and make the decision. I think there's 2 things I look at. Is it irreversible? And what's the consequence? And I just place it on a scale. If I know the mistake I'm going to make is going to wipe me out, then I won't go ahead with it. But I feel like it could work, then I'm just going to give it a go.
And where are you with that scheme at the moment? Are you in construction?
Construction, yeah. I've been in construction for about over a year now. I sold some off plan as well.
Nice.
Looking to get the network I have with the social housing to try and take some of them out. Because what we've decided to do now is refinance.
To basically stabilize the rental.
Refinance. Try and get some social housing contracts on there and sell it as often as an investment, because I don't like taking too much of a risk, because we might be in legals for God knows how long, and we're on some finance that's obviously quite expensive at the end of the day. So it's just refinance as soon as it's done. The ones that we have sold off plan that we know are serious buyers, cash buyers. We've got a lot of international investments as well. So people from like Nigeria, there's a lot of money in Africa. So people from these places coming over, buying, etc. So yeah, just however way it works. If someone wants to buy, they're still available as well.
That's it, man. Hey, listen, always plug yourself. So if somebody wants to connect with you, find out what's going on, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Instagram is the main one for me. YouTube, I'll start uploading on YouTube.
What's your Instagram, my bro?
So my Instagram is Mr.Manny with an X. So that's Mr.MXNNY. So Mr. Manny with an X instead of an A. And a dot.
We're going to put all of your links in the description below. Final thoughts, some advice you'd want to leave a prospective property investor or business person with?
if you're really serious about this industry, I think it's quite important to brush up on your knowledge and skills. So ensuring that whatever you do, it might be my way where you go and work for one of these big organizations, or it might be shadowing or mentoring person, just ensuring that you've got the knowledge and skill set required, because there is a lot to learn. And I feel like one big thing is that this is what I didn't like about school in particular. It teaches us to be good at everything, and I think that makes you mediocre. Well, like, if you want to do crypto, go and do crypto. If you want to do property, do it property, but do it wholeheartedly. I think especially in the property space, there's a lot of people coming in, but we need like industry expert, people that will revolutionize the industry. So I think if you really want to get into property, just ensure that you take it wholeheartedly and that it's something you really want to do, and you take the time to learn it, and just ensure that you really focus on it, and just make sure you're not sidetracked, because it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and it's expensive if you get it wrong, basically.
I think that's some great advice. This has been another episode of the PBK podcast. We are going to be back next week with another amazing guest. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe. You know what I mean? We're flying right now. Don't know what we want to get to, but we want to get to a load of subscribers so we can keep adding as much value as possible. I'll catch you next week. Peace.